You guys have been in our class, what, a couple of years now or more?
I'm very uncomfortable. It's just not my forte. And that's what happened. I'm losing my voice as well. So when we were asked to in front of you and speak, I said, no way, I'm not going to do that. So, but I have my big shot here. He helps me. Anyway, I was born in Germany. Family of 10. 5 brothers, 3 sisters, parents of course. My parents had gone through the First and Second World War at that time. And I remember also from the wartime a little bit. I was then 3 years old and the war was over in 48. I was older then. And you can see I'm very nervous. I have to think. What was I going to? Yeah, my dad was never around because he was a soldier, and mom was left with 8 children, fighting for her children. And there was a lot of bargaining going around, and then also there was no money in circulation. So we had to just live with what we were given and just survive. Anyway, you can see I survived it.
Look at the picture. And that was 52 years ago. She has improved. I don't know about the rest.
Yes. I went to school in Germany, finished schooling, and then went to, what do you call it? Internship? No. What do you call it? Berufsschule.
Berufsschule. That's
Where you choose a profession and go through it for 4 years, you know. And then after that, I went to Switzerland. I have a brother living there. And I thought, well, it would be nice just to have somebody there who can help me in case I get stuck somewhere. And I went in hotel business. That has always been very interesting. Because I know in hotel business you can travel a lot and you see different countries and learn different languages. And so I was, the hotel, I was a trainee, so they showed you and trained you in every department. So I really enjoyed that. And the hotel, there was one guy working as well, and that was Willie. And one day I just walked. The hotel was located on the river of Rhine, the waterfall. So sometimes I just walked under the waterfall. You could walk under there. And so on the other side, there's somebody walking towards me, and I realized that I know this guy. And of course, then we got closer and we talked to him, and I found out that he was working in the same hotel. I was a freshman over there.
You're doing good. You're doing good. Both of us, we were in Switzerland. She was born in Germany. I was born in Holland. And as you can see, this is the place where she was born in Wolfsburg. And there's another click supposedly of this one. Yeah. Well, we get better as we go. That's the Netherlands. I thought I'd give you a little bit the background of where we were born and where we lived. And this is the place where I was born and lived in Rijshoort in Ridderkerk. And there you see what got me in trouble. I was born in Holland during the Second World War, or the beginning of Second World War, almost in an ambulance, because my mom had complications, and most of the kids still were born at home, but I was an exception. She had to be taken to the hospital, but the problem was that the Germans occupied the bridge that led to the city where the hospital was. So they finally let us through, otherwise I would have been, I don't know what you call a person that's born in an ambulance, but I would have been in trouble. Anyway, we met in Switzerland, and both of us are from different backgrounds, different cultures, different denomination or religion, whatever you might call it. Bruni was brought up Lutheran. Her mom was Roman Catholic, and her dad was Protestant, Lutheran. I was born in a Christian family. My family were churchgoers every Sunday, twice. When I was 13, I lost my mom, and that's where I really rebelled, and I was not a happy camper. My dad had a lot of problems with me and my brother. We both stuck together, and we were helping out on the farm. My dad is a farmer, and every morning at 4 o'clock we had to pitch in and help out on the farm, and then at 8 o'clock wash up and go to school, and that was our routine. So when I found out that a friend of my dad was a baker, and I liked that kind of work, I liked being creative, and especially in Holland during Christmas time you have gingerbread houses and you have marzipan figurines, and once he found out that I was good at that, he let me do whatever I wanted, and he sold it, so it was a good start for me. I went through my apprenticeship also, like Bruni. Most of the kids in Europe, they go through an apprenticeship. It's not expected that everybody goes to university or college. And by 21, I graduated as a master pastry chef. But I had been bitten by the travel bug. I love traveling, so I got a job on that ship over there, which is now in Rotterdam. It's a hotel now, but in 1959, 1960, I was pastry chef on that ship, and Bruni was still not in the picture at that time. Some of my friends on the boat, he gave me an advice. He said, listen, if you want to get further in the hotel business, you have to make contacts, you have to network. So the best part to do is you go to Switzerland, and that's how I ended up in the same hotel as Bruni, and the rest is history. Next month we're going to be married for 53 years, and I can only give God the glory for what He has done. In my hometown they had a little band with trumpets and trombones, and the name of that band was Solo Deo Gloria. And there were still in my life, not that I forgot about God, but He was not a priority. So when we went to Switzerland, we got 2 children. I might be able to. That's Berlin, close to Bruni's hometown, and that's where the big Volkswagen factory, Fahrvergnügen, have you heard of it? The joy of driving. Everybody works in that factory, and the spiritual life in Wolfsburg is very low. People, they don't trust God for their needs anymore. And it's a little bit like in Holland, and it's a little bit like over here where we start. forgetting about God because we are doing so well. And that blessing, like many people say, well, we are really blessed, but that blessing can be a curse if we just trust what we have. So after we moved to Switzerland, we worked for 3 years together in another hotel, and we had our kiddos. This is Lucerne in Switzerland, beautiful town. And this was, Bruni had to pitch in for everything, and she was good with the pictures. And this is our kiddos. By the way, Jeanette right now is just at her birthday, 52 years, and Peter is 50. Both of them love the Lord. And what a blessing. But that's didn't come automatically. We
51 years.
51. Okay, yes. Sorry about that. From Switzerland, we moved to Holland. We were in Holland for 2 years, and there what I learned what the English word of sojourners mean. Sojourners are people that go from one place to the other. Some have called us the gypsies of the hotel business. But I was so fortunate to marry a wife that had the same vibe. She loved traveling, and she's a trooper. If you need help with suitcase packing, she is an expert. She's able to go for a month to Europe with only a carry-on. Only a carry-on. And still look attractive every day. From Holland, we moved to St. Croix, Virgin Islands. And the one on the right side was Willie Bezemer. And it was funny because every culture is different. And I worked for a Swiss company, and the owner of the company one afternoon went into the kitchens to look for one of the Swiss chefs, and he heard in one of the kitchens, he heard somebody yodel. And he went around, and what he saw was a chef from Trinidad, pitch black. He said, "Where's the Swiss chef? And who yodeled?" He said, "Me, boss, I'm yodeling." Things like that, that you see the different culture pitching and get learn from each other, that taught as a lesson. So that was the yodeling experience. From St. Croix, we moved to this little home that we had there. It was the hotel was destroyed by Hurricane Hugo, and a couple of years ago we went back to St. Croix. That home was still there because the walls were about half a meter wide, nothing, but that's how we lived over there. From St. Croix we moved to Curacao, and there was another picture. Okay, Miss Curacao. Curacao is the Dutch Antilles, and that was the toughest job that I had. We had most of the people in the Dutch Antilles, they accepted the Dutch social laws, and they were well taken care of. The only problem was that when it was raining, nobody showed up. And we had quite some challenges in that hotel that taught me to pace myself and have some margin. Sometimes I started there as a pastry chef, and then the executive chef moved on, and I had the opportunity to become executive chef. But I was busy basically 9, 10, 12, 13, 14 hours a day. And even if I came home in the afternoon, Bruni, she had to protect me, and because they would call me all the time, and she took the plug out of it. So she took care of me over there. Our spiritual life was on a very low level in St. Croix. let me speak for myself. Bruni still in St. Croix. She met a Korean doctor and his wife, and they invited her for a service at the little Baptist church, and Bruni started going over there. In Curacao, he went to another Dutch Reformed church, but then again, I didn't have time. I was too busy with my job. We moved from Curacao to Puerto Rico, same thing. And from Puerto Rico, the general manager of the hotel, we worked for Rockefeller, Lawrence Rockefeller, and all those hotels, we really lived in places that were beautiful, where a lot of people paid a lot of money, and we were exposed to that every day. Now that can be very attractive, but on the other hand, it can be dangerous also, because you think that you have it all together, especially chefs being exposed to pressure, and also to other items like booze. I found out that booze means something to drink, and a lot of chefs, I don't know if you are aware of it, but a lot of chefs had problem of alcoholism. In St. Croix, one of the chefs, he became the best chef that Conrad Hilton had, and he was overseeing all the Hilton hotels in the world. And I met him in St. Croix because he was on his way down, and it was so sad to see that somebody with such a high prestige, he lost his wife, he lost his children, they gave him the job just out of pity, and his life was ruined. And at that time, I was well on my way to develop I didn't say that I was an alcoholic, but I didn't feel comfortable if I didn't have a beer in my hands. So, to go back from St. Croix, Curacao, Puerto Rico, we moved to Acapulco, Mexico. At that time, I didn't have to ask for a job. The jobs were coming in, and I enjoyed every bit of it, and it was really a challenge, and it was fun. I enjoyed what I was doing, but there was always something missing. And one day, while we were living in Acapulco, we got visitors. You know, when you live in a place like that, there are always people who say, hey, listen, I'll come and visit you. You're welcome. So we had those friends over. Let me see if I can do this. This is Curacao Hilton, Puerto Rico, the Rock Resorts, where we met different celebrities. One of the celebrities was, I don't know if you call it a celebrity, but he was a president that we had over here way back, President Nixon. He was one of the guests over there, and he was, we had an event, and on the menu was different items, and one of them was avocado salad. And Hernandez Colon, who was the governor of Puerto Rico, was his interpreter. And Nixon asked him, Mr. Governor, what does avocado mean? Well, how do you translate that? Well, he said, in Spanish, let me rephrase that. In Spanish, avocado is aguacate. He said, agua means water, cate means gate. That was not the right translation that he wanted to hear at that time. But we had in all the hotels people that were celebrities in St. Croix. I met Victor Borge, I know he's one of my favorites. And then in Acapulco, we got there in '75, and about a year later, I was playing golf, and I got a little noise coming from the back. There was a little golf cart with the general manager, and he said, Willie, we have a challenge. And so, well, what can be the challenge? That he came to pick me up on the golf course. He said, we have a VIP. And so, okay, a VIP would like to have some special desserts. Okay, what would he like to have? Well, I let his assistant explain that to you. So I put my golf clubs away, went to the kitchen, and talked to the guy who was in charge. He said, my boss, he would like to have a strawberry dessert, something with fresh strawberries, very light, and okay, those things you don't have in the drawer. So it took me some time to prepare something. I had something like a roulade with Bavarian cream, a little bit crème marnier, fresh strawberries, dust it very lightly, send it up to the room, and I thought that was it. About 5 minutes later, his assistant came back. He said, Chef, it was delicious, but my boss didn't like it. I said, no fresh strawberries, strawberry jam, and it has to have icing, no powdered sugar. And okay, according to his instructions, I fabricated another one, and then I sent it up. And believe it or not, 5 minutes later, at that time I still had a temperament. I don't think that I don't have a temperament now, but at that time. So I took off my apron and I said, well, that's it. He said, Chef, don't get mad. We get an example for you tomorrow morning. They send a Learjet from Acapulco to the Bahamas, where this gentleman had stayed before. And they brought, next day, they brought a ugly looking, lumpy, sweet strawberry roll, whatever you call it, and I had to copy that every day. The name of that VIP was I keep you in, I can't even see that. Okay, that's the chapel where we had our visitors. I get things a little bit confused, but I sure got you in conspicuous. The name of the guy was Howard Hughes, and I don't know how many of you knew that some people have accused me of being the murderer of Howard Hughes. He died because of your pastries. But Howard Hughes, he was for 4 or 5 weeks in our hotel, and he died like a dog. No friends, no family. All his assistants were Mormons. Bruni used to play tennis with the doctors and the people that he was there. But that was the moment when God started working in my life, when I saw, with all the money in the world, one of the wealthiest people in the world, and he couldn't buy happiness. And that's how it started. This is this is Howard. When he looked better, when he was in Acapulco, he had long hair, long fingernails, big beard. He was, whatever you call it in medical terms, but microphobic. He had a very special. If somebody of you have seen the movie, the Aviator with Leonardo DiCaprio, shows a little bit about his life, and sad story. A little bit later, this is where I had the opportunity to share with other people what God did in my life and how I came to know the Lord, and Howard Hughes was part of it, although you wouldn't believe that God can use even Howard Hughes to bring somebody to the Lord. We were in, as I said before, we had visitors from Holland, and they wanted to go to church. And believe me, I didn't know any churches. There were a lot of Roman Catholic churches in Acapulco, but we didn't know about it until somebody told me, you know what, on top of the hill, I don't know how many of you have been in Acapulco, but around the bay, there is, on top of the hill, there's a big, huge cross. It's gigantic. And there was chapel over there. It seats about 50, 60 people, beautifully constructed with marble and all the precious wood. It was constructed by a Mexican millionaire who lost his two sons in an airplane crash. And his indications were that every Sunday there should be a Protestant and a Roman Catholic church service. So when I found out that the service was only 1 hour, because then the Roman Catholic Mass should start, so I said, well, I'll take them over there. And when we got there, we found out that there was a couple from North Carolina, and they took a little bit more interest in us than was welcome, because they found out that we lived in Acapulco. So they started calling us and talking about being not being pushy. I have to say they were pretty pushy. But I thank the Lord for them, and God used those godly people to make an impact on our life. Bruni was invited to, and the kids, to a conference in Puebla, and we had never participated. Everything that we used to do, we were used to travel independently. I never was a member of an organization or a club or anything. We did everything individual. And here we find that yeah, there is a group of people that is different. So they invited Bruni to drive with the kids. The kids had memorized verses, and there was like a Christian camp, but for the adults there was a conference. And in that conference spoke Dr. J. Adams. I don't know how many of you have heard of Dr. J. Adams. He's a Christian psychiatrist or whatever. And not an evangelist, but that was the place where God talked to Bruni and where she accepted the Lord. And when she came to home, I saw something when she came back home. Thank you. When she came back home, the first week, I said, well, something is missing. I know a little bit religion is not bad at all. I was born in a Christian family and it didn't do me any harm. So when I saw the change in her, all of a sudden I started thinking. And then there was a month later, there was a big conference in our hotel, the Acapulco Princess Hotel, 1,500 room hotel. And the main speaker we had, that was from American young presidents of Ford Company, General Electric, all the big companies, and they were all under 40, and most of them apparently were Christians, because they had invited for the prayer breakfast, they invited Billy Graham. I didn't know about Billy Graham, but since he was a Billy, I thought, well, maybe. And we set up the buffet for 1,000 people on the golf course. And as chefs, when you set up a buffet, you cannot, when the speaker starts, you cannot start cleaning up. So we were standing there, and the president of Mexico was present, the governor of Guerrero was present, and all those people. And here are the chefs standing and waiting until Billy Graham finishes. And he started with, I don't know exactly all the details, but one thing stuck to me at that time. He talked about what good it is to gain the whole world and lose your soul. And that made me think. Here you are in Acapulco, a very good job, lovely wife, beautiful children. What does it do if you see all those, and Howard Hughes, that was a recent experience. So I look back and I look at all those little moments where God started nudging me. There was in 1977, and Bruni started on a regular basis attending a women's Bible study, and the couple from North Carolina started a little Bible study group, and they invited us. And on a Thursday before Easter, I don't know, in Holland they call that Green Thursday, or there was a communion service in our church, and Bruni kept on asking, "Are you coming with me?" I said, "Okay, I'll come with you." And that, what? This time I come with you. I was always too busy. And she said, "Okay." There was a young Mexican evangelist. He was not an evangelist, he was part of Campus Crusade Christ. And he was the speaker. And there were about 45, 50 people there. And he was talking about that. And there are so many people that grow up in Christian families. But if you are born in a garage, that doesn't make you a car. And that get home. And a couple of other things that he mentioned. Short story is that that night he didn't give an invitation, but that night it was crystal clear to me that I had to make a decision. So on our way from Acapulco, the hotel was about 20 minutes or all around the bay, over the hill. And at the end of his message he said, "And you, are you really a Christian? Christian? Christian?" And those words were ringing in my ears. "And you, are you really a Christian?" So coming home, we started talking about that. And that's where, with Bruni and the kids, I surrendered my life. And, you know, Dutch people are very hard-headed. And I thank God for that. And only I can give God the honor and glory to show what he can do with a stubborn Dutchman. From there on, I'll have to say that God has been so good for us, even though we have been in situations that, humanly speaking, are unfair. One of the things that I have to mention is that we were there maybe a year after I accepted Christ. Luis Palau came to Acapulco, and I was his designated driver because I spoke English and he spoke Spanish. So, and Luis, he speaks fluent Spanish, fluent English, but he liked the fact that I knew the hotels, I knew the chefs over there, plus the fact that at that time, and I was a young Christian, I had accepted the offer to help out, and I thought, well, I can drive. But we had really a growing time and a fast growing time, and that's what I really long for sometimes, being in an organized church like this, where everything is in place. When we started our little church, everybody pitched in, and it was really a growing experience. See what God can provide if you trust Him. And we sing with our mouth, we sing the hymns, trust and obey. But sometimes I catch myself, Willie, you're singing it, but you're not doing it. And at that time, we saw in Acapulco, you let me know when the time is over, or somebody in Acapulco. Okay, in Acapulco, we were involved in the church, and Bruni had some experiences, some mission trips all around. And if somebody would have told me at that time, Willie, one day you will stand in front of people and talk about Jesus Christ and the love He has for us, I would have told them, you're crazy. But here we are. And I was reminded this morning that it says somewhere that if we don't speak up, the stones will speak. So I'm here to, instead of the stones, to let you know that God is faithful. After 18 years working in Acapulco, where a little church where we had 5 churches came out of that church, and it has been such a blessing to see how God each time provided. That church did not accept gifts from the United States or any other place. That couple from North Carolina taught us how important it is to tithing, how important it is to realize that everything we have is not ours. It's God's, and we are only mayordomos. That means we are only stewards of what God has given us. And that has taught us, because after 18 years I was entitled for a severance pay, or a finiquito they call it in Spanish. Would have been about $100,000, where I thought I'm going to start my little business in the States. About 3 weeks before before I went to get my check, before we left Acapulco, I went to pick up my check, and the general manager, we had just had a new general manager, he said, Chef, you made enough money, there's no finiquito for you. We looked at each other, and yes, like we say in the States, we were ticked off. But only for a day or two, because when we came home, we went on our knees and we said, Lord, it's your money, not ours. And that has helped us so much to trust God for all our needs. And that's not just a promise for some of us, that's a promise for each one of us. We came to the States on a shoestring. We started our little business, and here we are 17, 18, 20 years later. We're still alive and kicking. I think we don't lack of anything. God has taken us to different countries where we can share the gospel, and He uses even a Dutch chef. You don't have to be a pastor, you don't have to be an evangelist, you don't have to be a missionary. Each one of us, I teach at the culinary school every day. I have an opportunity to share the good news. When they come out and say, Chef, can we talk? We talk. I'm not politically correct. I share the gospel the way it is. And that's what God has done in our life. We were involved with the Gideons, and there's one thing that I found in this is one of the things that I would love for all of us to sing. It's one of my favorite songs. And before we start singing that, I would like to read something from Hebrews 11. This is the Gideon Bible, the Dutch Gideon Bible. The Dutch are stubborn in everything. They have the Gideon Bible in 4 languages of the New Testament. But I would like to read, to close down it from Hebrews 11, where it talks about all the heroes of the faith, and talks about Abel, Abraham, Sarah, all of those heroes. But then when we come to verse 13, it says, it was in faith that all these persons died. They did not receive the things God had promised, but from a long way off they saw them and welcomed them and admitted openly that they were foreigners and refugees on earth. Bruni and I, we have been foreigners and refugees in many places, even here in Fresno. Each one of us will have to realize that we're just passing through. This is not this, and there's a song about that, but this is not our place. But in the time that we're still alive means that God has a purpose for us. And that's what our prayer is on a daily basis, 24 hours. God, use us, and God will use you if you are available. One of the guys from the Gideon organization, when he got me involved with the Gideons, he said, when I said, no, I cannot do that because I'm a foreigner, my English is not good enough, my Spanish is not good enough. He said, Willie, you were right, you cannot do it. But God can do it. He said, it's not your ability, it's your availability what counts. And that's what God expects from each one of us. And another thing that caught my attention is God does not call the qualified, but He qualifies the called. And each one of us is commanded to share the good news. And I trust that God will use each one of you every day, wherever you have an opportunity, whether it's with the gardener or with the kids or wherever you are, share the good news, because today the whole television news program is full of bad news, and we have the good news and we keep it safe. So my prayer is that we all trust God that He will equip us enough to be able to share the good news. One of the things let's sing this song first. Well, this was to show how God brings people. I was allowed to translate for Billy Graham in our little church. I got to know him a little bit better over there. He wrote most of his books in Acapulco, and he is such a humble example of how to share, how to love, how to be compassionate. And another one is the opportunity that I had a couple of months ago to hang out with Luis Palau and talk about old times when he had his birthday. This is our daughter when Luis Palau was in Acapulco, and this is when he had his birthday. And now we're gonna sing. I'm gonna go back to this. By the time we finish, I know how to handle this machine. Let's sing this story. Let's stand and
Great. Thank you, Willie, and thank you, Bruni.